Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Welcome to this second edition of the podcast format. Today we're going to be talking about success as a filmmaker and what that means, all the different interpretations of that, all the different definitions of that, how I struggled for a very long time with what my goal was as a filmmaker. And when I finally found it, it was much closer than I anticipated, and how even though in my definition now I've found success, I haven't stopped making things. I haven't stopped shooting. I haven't stopped being creative, and how we're often caught between this idea of success means complacency, and once you peak, you're now on the downslide, you're headed towards failure. Basically, all of the different ways that we look at our own careers, define ourselves, and how we can do that in a healthy way that's productive, not self-flagellating, and not egotistical, and trading into hubris and trading into thinking that we're better than everybody else, and kind of creating a toxic positivity. Or, you see a lot of Instagram and social media kind of showing off filmmakers with the best gear, the most lights, they're always on set. So let's go back to the beginning. When I first started as a filmmaker professionally, I was just left college. I was 21. I was working in animation, and I was there for a couple of years. I got into CGI and 3D animation. Then I got into directing TV commercials with 3D animation. Then I got into directing live action TV commercials. That was more or less my 20s as a filmmaker. I also wrote a lot of scripts, but during that time, and I guess into my 30s, I would see films that came out, or I would see my favorite films, and I would constantly be looking on IMDb for how old is that director? Is it their first movie? If it's not, how old were they when they made their first film? I would constantly be looking at other people as a way to kind of get a yardstick for, was I successful? Was I on the way to success? What was my definition of success? And when you're starting out, I mean, these are pretty obvious. It's like, the Oscar winning, the $100 million opening weekend, the $500 million gross, the development deal with the studios, the working with, all the great actors of that generation, being acclaimed. And you look at people like Christopher Nolan, James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and there's always a sort of spread between commercial success or critical success, or awards. I only say that because I think I'm fascinated with trilemmas. That you're seeing this very common thing, which is you can have it fast, cheap, or good, but you can only pick two. And I think with Hollywood feature film directing success, there was you can be popular, you can be critically awarded, or you can get your peers' respect as far as awards go. And I wasn't really aware of this, but I know that Christopher Nolan for a very long time, and Martin Scorsese for a very long time, and George Lucas still, I guess, both got critical and popular success, but never won any awards. Their peers sort of resented them for their other two successes, and as a result, kind of denied them the Oscar. Whatever that is. But I think everyone could probably name, if they put their mind to it, like a dozen different filmmakers who are famous, have done great films, who they respect, other people respect, basically have almost complete artistic freedom to, make whatever movies they want. They can just throw a script at a studio executive and get $100 million to make it. There are people out there that do that. I thought that was what success was, and I thought unless I accomplished that, I was going to be a failure. I was going to be less than. I was always going to be behind someone else. They were going to be better than me, and whatever that means. And I I actually spent a lot of time worrying about that I could have been enjoying what I was doing. I could have been putting in that energy into being more creative, into what I was actually, the films I was actually making. What is it? Shakespeare says, "Beware, my lord of envy. It is the green-eyed monster that doth mock the meat it feeds upon." Envy and jealousy are, these toxic, poisonous emotions where you either want something that someone else has. I guess that's envy. Jealousy is when you're worried someone is going to take something that you have, like a jealous husband. I learned that from The Simpsons. So envy is so toxic because we spend all this time resenting what other people have and wanting it for ourselves, but it stops us getting that because it then, no one envied their way into a great idea. Yes, challenge themselves into it, but very few people have been, positively motivated by trying to get what someone else has. I realized that ultimately that taking someone else's definition of success is always going to lead you down the wrong path. You need to come up with your own idea of success, one that feels good to you and one that's a mix of the things that you want and like physical things and the freedom to spend your time the way that you want to spend it. I heard a great quote the other day, which is the only useful definition of intelligence is living a life that you're excited to live. Not the IQ test, not advanced degrees, not wealth or even self-made wealth. Because if you have a huge bank account or massive amount of assets and aren't enjoying what you're doing, that you're not excited to get up every day and do what you're doing, what does that gain you? What is the point of that? To put that in a film perspective, if you're not excited to go to set, if you're not eager to shoot, if you're not enjoying the process of the films that you're making, why are you doing it? Right? I know that there are a lot of directors who did I can think of dozens of examples. Directors that did a great first film, then got a bigger budget studio feature, knocked it out the park, and then were given a huge tentpole release. I don't know, was it who did World of Warcraft? I can't remember. The guy who did Moon, David Bowie's son. And then that process is supposedly successful. It's supposedly, you've been anointed as the next great talent of your generation, but the film sucks, the film flops, and then that person's never heard from again. Hopefully they went back to making movies that they cared about, because what is the point of getting an opportunity that you don't enjoy the process of? And, I think often these films, these big budget feature films, I remember Gary Oldman talking about shooting a Harry Potter scene when he was whatever that wizard is. And it was like, was he dying or was he dead on the shore of a lake? And he was like there for 7 days at night, just sitting there pretending to be a corpse, or he was like giving a line. It's like day after day after day, coverage, different lens changes, lighting setups. You're waiting in a trailer, hours of makeup. Obviously the people that do it for a good reason. A lot of people do that for a paycheck, and I don't begrudge them that at all. But a lot of most of the people at the top, the producers, the directors especially, they've got millions of dollars in their bank account, or their assets, or their brokerage account, or their whatever it is, in Bitcoin. They don't need to be there. They could pay their expenses, make the films they want to make for the rest of their life. So what are they doing? Why do they need that exterior validation? They're more or less caught in a trap. They're caught in the trap of success. They wanted that. They wanted that as they were growing up, as they're becoming filmmakers. They're like, oh, I want to do this. I want to, direct a big franchise, a Bond film or whatever it is. Then when they get there and realize it's not fun, they're unable to have the mental flexibility to pivot and say, I don't want to do this. This is not fun. I'm not excited to do this. This is, creating an environment where so many other people have their, fingers in the process. Maybe, compromise is enjoyable for some people. It's not enjoyable for me. Everyone is going to have different opportunities. Everyone has different advantages and disadvantages. Everyone comes from a different background. Some people are second and third generation filmmakers. They start on set when they're 12 years old. They get to know everyone. Their dad has picnics with studio executives or executive producers. They get, I know Roland Emmerich had the movie that became Universal Soldier. I think it was a couple $100,000. His dad just wrote him a check to pay for it all. That is different. You can't compare yourself if you're coming up from a disadvantaged, comparatively, childhood to someone who's just going to have their parents write them a check for their first movie and have all the connections that entails. I personally will never win an Oscar, an Emmy, Golden Globe, People's Choice Award. What's the Logie, the Australian one? I'm never going to win one, ever. Does that mean that I failed as a filmmaker? I don't think so. Does it mean I wasted my life? I don't think so either. Like, if you look at the people that win those, often they aren't happy. Often success is as big a trap and as full of potential landmines and downsides as failure. And you really need to be in control of your own definition of success, of your own filmmaking process, if you want to build a career and build a body of work that makes you happy. Here are some things to ask yourself. Do I like what I'm doing? Am I looking forward to, shooting? Am I proud of what I've made? Am I excited to share what I've done with people that I care about? Am I leaving a legacy that my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will watch and know me and what I'm interested in and what's important to me a little more? And the other side of success is, if I'm doing those things, do I also have the freedom to stop doing those things when it's important not to? Have I have kids, am I there for the important moments of their life? Am I there for the unimportant moments of their life? Do I know them? Have I been able to spend those early years when your kids just you are your child's entire world? Are you able to be there for them and present with that? Because you only get one shot at that. Once your kid is 7, 8, 9, or older, once your kid is 10, 11, 12, they start going through puberty, the childhood in the little kid sense is done, right? They're out in the world now. They're becoming their own person. They may not be as interested in spending time with you. If you are nose to the grindstone, trying to build your career, doubling down, working hard, saving for retirement, saving to pay for their childhood, like schools and whatever, mortgages, you miss that. Then even if you enjoy the process, I can't see that as a worthwhile life. So you need to be a whole person. You need to be a present for what is going on in your life and be able to step back once in a while and say, is the goal that I'm chasing still one that's important to me? Is the goal that I'm chasing still something that makes sense? Because you can have these goals when you're 8, 10, 12 years old and be chasing them your whole life and never step back and be like, what would I let a 8-year-old plan my life? Would I let a 8-year-old set the priorities that I'm going to pursue for the next 40 or 50 years? There's nothing wrong with realigning as you find out more information. There's nothing wrong with setting new goals to be a different type of filmmaker if you come across something that you really enjoy and you realize that the thing that you're doing now is not something you enjoy. You've fallen out of love with it. That's totally fine. That's what a sensible, creative, fully realized adult would do. Not stick it through, ruin their health, and, develop anger issues because they are too proud to step back and say, this doesn't work for me anymore. I also want to talk a little bit about, in counterpoint to that, a little bit about being very switched on and having very high standards when it is that you do work. When you do work, there's a great clip of Peter Sellers where the guy asks, you have a reputation for being difficult, and Sellers says, "No, I'm not difficult. I'm incredibly collaborative. I'm incredibly, giving and generous." This may or may not be true. He says, "I just detest mediocrity." He saw himself as a comic actor as being the very best there was. And he expected, the director, the cameraman, the other actors on set to be at his level and to bring their A game. If he, spent 6 months learning the lines backwards and forwards, if he, had rehearsed with himself and worked out and blocked it, and then another actor shows up and they can't remember their 2 lines, he's going to let them have it. He's furious because he sees that as a massive disrespect to him, and he's impatient with working with people that are so far below him. Irony is that when you're giving all of yourself to a project, the time goes far past much faster. You're able to be more engaged, and as a result, it's a much more pleasurable experience. If you're just sitting around and half-assing it, it's actually more exhausting than if you're giving it your absolute best or you're performing at your peak. So I think that you don't need to say, oh, I want to build a great work-life balance. I want to sail through with a minimum of effort and live a soft life. That is not, I think, conducive to making great films. I think what makes a great film is when you are giving it your all. If you're not taking yourself seriously, but you're taking the work seriously. I think that's a quote from the guy who was in Chinatown. You have a much better time of it, and you can work much harder and then relax much more than if you're sort of just in the middle the whole time and kind of, just kind of moving things along. So that's another indication for me personally, whether or not I'm working to my potential, because that I'm pushing myself, that I'm remembering all the things I'm remembering. I'm, constantly improving in the way that I talk to actors, in the way that I shoot, in the ways that I'm prepping and being active on set. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be good. And if I push myself and actually bump up against what I'm capable of, meaning I am getting things wrong, I'm forgetting things aren't working out, I know if I'm at least having a little of that on my shoots, that I've, not bitten off more than I can chew and totally failed, but I have run into problems along the way that I've had to solve, and maybe I haven't solved it well. Then I've gone back to the studio, looked at it and said, next time I'm going to do it this way. If I have the freedom to do that, then I'm constantly going to be improving. Whereas if I'm, everything is just easy sailing, set it up here, get the 2-shot, get the, get the dirty single, get the reverse, move on, get the wide. If I'm just going through the paces, I don't think I'd be as engaged. I don't think I'd be as I'm not benefiting as much as if I'm, learning and giving myself the freedom to do that. So we all need the carrot and the stick in life, in film, as writers, as any creative pursuit. We need the thing that we're moving towards, that we're excited to gain, the reward, the great shot, the great scene, the great film. And we also need the stick behind us saying, I have my potential. I don't want to waste it. That I don't want to have to go and get a regular job. I don't want to have had this opportunity and put these resources into it and only have it fall flat. So you need a kind of gentle, you need to work out what level of carrot and what level of stick help you live your best life, your best career. Some people need more stick than carrot. They're more motivated by, letting themselves and other people down. Others need more carrot. They want to, live in this wonderful, imagined, powerful, luxurious future where they, go snowboarding and own a sports car and go sailing every day in the summer, and they have the money to do whatever they want or not do anything. I think most people need both, and you just have to. It really is a process of more of imagination than it is of actual work. You need to make yourself conscious of what those two scenarios are, and work and live in a way that makes sense for you. That is all I'm going to have time for today. Thank you very much for listening to these ramblings. I really do feel it's a great way to organize my thoughts. It's a really great way to communicate more than just the 4 or 5 minute lighting tutorials that I've been doing this past year. And I, as much as I like them, I felt like I had much more to contribute and much more I wanted to kind of document of my thought process. So I hope you find this interesting. There's a ton more to make. Don't die with your films still inside you. I will see you next time.